recording. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to our ABOO Leadership series of lunchtime learning sessions. If you don't know me, I'm Lucy McCarrher, founder of Rethink Press, Book Magic AI, the Business Book Awards, and the ABOO, A Book of One's Own, Women Writers Networking Group. I am absolutely delighted to have Shireen Smith as our guest presenter today. I've known and worked with Shireen for some years. She's a highly impressive businesswoman and the absolute best in her field, which is brand strategy and intellectual property. Shireen founded her IP law firm in 2005 as Rights, and she's the author of 3 amazing books, and she has a master's degree in intellectual property. So welcome, Shireen. I think one of your key messages to business owners is that when it comes to brand management and IP, most of us have some very mistaken ideas about how to protect ourselves. And one of our main problems is we don't know what we don't know. So as the owner of a couple of businesses, I'm really looking forward to your talk. And for me, especially to hearing about the J.K. Rowling phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So over to you, Shireen, and everybody, if you have questions for Shireen during her presentation, please leave them in the chat and we'll come back and Shireen will answer them at the end. Okay, Shireen.
Well, thank you very much, Lucy, for that introduction. I'm just going to share my screen. And get started, really. So, hello everyone and welcome. This title is encouraging you to dream big. A good resource for aligning your mindset and vision is Dr. Tara Swartz, The Source. She's a neuroscientist who brings an evidence-based approach to new age concepts like the law of attraction. The science suggests we all really do have the power to manifest the lives we desire. So once you've decided what you want for your life and business, it's appropriate to consider how to go about achieving your objectives. As Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. There are 5 steps for turning your knowledge and expertise into wealth and impact. If these steps are implemented correctly, you're more likely to achieve your objectives. I've used this same 5-step process in my own business and helped several clients to turn their expertise and IP into value using this approach. Step 1 really starts with you. Take stock of your IP to decide how to turn it into value. What do you want to create? What change do you want to make in the world? What are your values? What do you stand for? What offers might you make? When I work with clients, I provide them with the tools to think this through. Step 2 is all about looking outward to the market to understand what the world wants. You need deep insights about the competition and the alternatives to your offering. The aim is to understand your audience, what buyers want and need. Assess your potential offers objectively and test your assumptions. Look at your ideas critically before implementing them. Is there a need for what you want to create? First, identify an audience that resonates with your potential offers. I have various tips and tools for doing effective market orientation work. Step 3, once you have a clear idea of who your ideal client is, it's time to make some key decisions. How might you use your core competence to stand out and differentiate yourself from the competition? What's the best way to position your offers so they're aligned to what buyers want and need? What further market research do you need to do to assess how to differentiate and position yourself? How will you test your messaging and content? Again, I help clients think through how they'll stand out. Step 4 involves choosing an appropriate name and naming hierarchy. Names are a big subject from an IP perspective. They impact business design in ways most people don't realize. This is a large subject. There's time to touch on some basics today. Step 5 is about establishing your brand strategy. This is when you finalize decisions made during earlier stages, such as about what you want to be known for. Clarity about what you stand for and against is key to determining the content you'll share in your marketing and sales copy. Your ideal buyer should resonate with your point of view and associate it with you. This is when you finalize your brand plan for your visual identity design brief. If you have big ambitions for your business, be it to make lots of money or because you're motivated to create a movement, then these 5 steps are the building blocks to focus on to achieve your objectives. Business is a competitive arena. To profit from your IP involves, among other things, using IP to create barriers to entry, a moat around your business. IP helps manage competition, so you stand out uniquely long-term and avoid having your true value stolen or copied. Today, I'll discuss some of the IP aspects you should be aware of. Now, this is for you if you have a business and want to go back to basics to take it to the next level. Perhaps you're rebranding, or maybe you've followed the wrong approach in the past and want to revisit things. There's so much information out there that just doesn't work or is incomplete. Equally, this is for you if you're starting a new business or side hustle and want a clear roadmap to guide your business journey so you launch successfully. It's also relevant to you if you realize that intellectual property is important and want to use an IP-led approach so you avoid making costly, ill-considered decisions that may be difficult to undo later. You don't want to have to rebrand down the line like the brands you've heard about that receive cease and desist letters years after using a name. And if you're a designer or marketer, a lawyer or other professional advisor who wants to give more rounded advice to your own clients by getting a wider perspective about business design, this is definitely for you. In the process, you could apply the learnings to improve your own business or projects too. Now, some market trends that I've noticed is that in all sectors, there's a surplus of businesses and brands to buy from. It's the ones that understand buyers and who position on something their ideal clients want that achieve their objectives. People are tired of being harassed with sales pitches. They're sick of sales calls, crappy cold DMs, emails, discovery calls disguised as strategy sessions. So clients are swimming upstream now. They're wanting to find you and to make their own buying decisions on their own timeline for their own unique and specific reasons. So your marketing needs to do the heavy lifting to make the competition irrelevant. You want to structure things so buyers are able to navigate their way through the overwhelming choices available to them towards you. And if you need proof of this, look at the last 50 things that you bought. Most of the things I buy, I see a piece of content or something about a business catches my eye, and perhaps I follow them and buy after a certain period. This is a trend I've been seeing not just in the market, but in my own behaviors. The job of marketing is to build awareness and attract leads. If you don't know who you are and what you're all about, you won't know how to consistently communicate relevant messages to your market. For your marketing to do its job, you need to know what you stand for and stand against, and who you're addressing in the content you put out, so you resonate with your ideal clients. So how does intellectual property come into all this? Let me explain by using J.K. Rowling as an example. She became rich because she owns valuable IP rights. Copyright ownership paved the way to her enormous wealth. It wasn't simply sales of her books that generated all that wealth. Thanks to owning copyright, she has diverse revenue streams from licensing, such as from granting film or TV or games rights, and from merchandising deals. If, when she was a penniless writer, Rowling had been so desperate to get published as not to pay attention to the details of her publishing contract, she could have given her copyright away to her publisher. Then, despite her book's success, she wouldn't have enjoyed the kind of wealth she has today. The publisher, as copyright owner, would have had the right to exploit the copyright through licensing deals and would have been the one to enjoy the wealth generated from her IP. Now, your wealth won't come from books if you're not an author. You'll need to take stock of your IP to identify how IP laws are relevant to you when you turn your knowledge and expertise into value. You'll need to take the right steps to secure your IP, just as J.K. Rowling needed to take the right actions to secure the right publishing deal. IP is a catch-all term used to describe 5 different legal rights that the law bestows for creations of the mind. They go by names like copyright, patents, trademarks, designs, and trade secrets. These rights are equivalent to property rights in that they may be sold, mortgaged, or licensed, just like physical property. If you own IP rights in something, then you're the one who decides how to exploit the asset. As mentioned, J.K. Rowling was able to grant various licensing deals because she owned copyright. To benefit properly from your IP when you turn your ideas into a product, service, or business, you invariably need to take steps in advance to secure the IP rights in what's created. The actions needed to own the rights in what's generated from your ideas depend on what it is and how it's created. Considering this aspect of IP isn't something you can leave for later or till you're already successful. It could be too late by then. That's because you don't automatically own the IP rights in something just because it was your idea or you paid for it to be created. J.K. Rowling needed to put her book out in the world using the right publishing deal. With the wrong publisher, she could have given away her copyright and got much less value from her work. By analogy, you first need to clarify what will be involved to implement your ideas and offers. Some ideas need to be kept totally secret. Others need to be protected with a patent or other registration, while yet others might need the right legal agreement to be put in place, and so on. For example, if you're going to develop an app and need to engage a developer to help you create it, you must use a written agreement and pay close attention to its wording so you get the IP rights in the app. The copyright default rules give the rights in the app to the developer unless the written agreement clearly states otherwise. So knowing what will be involved to implement your ideas is key to finding out what actions you need to take to secure the IP rights in what you create. IP rights should be your focus. Note that unlike physical property, where your rental opportunities are limited to a single physical building, with IP rights, you can license them to an infinite number of people. For example, J.K. Rowling's book is sold to millions of people. She earns a royalty equivalent to rent in physical property each time the book is sold. And as we saw earlier, she also generates other sources of revenue thanks to being the copyright owner. Quite apart from how IP might protect your assets or business concept, IP is relevant in a second way. That is, it's centrally relevant to the way you design your business and brand. Many small businesses think that brand isn't relevant to them, that it only applies to household names. However, every business has a brand in the sense that every business has a reputation and goodwill. That's why every business needs to understand how to address the IP issues that arise in relation to the way they design their business and brand. These IP issues are universally relevant to every single business. So I'll focus on business design for the rest of this talk because the issues are poorly understood, and getting them right will impact your revenues as well as the value of your business. Its reputation and goodwill are captured in your business's name. So something seemingly trivial, such as your choice of name, impacts your chances of success. The name is how people link your business to what it sells, so it's important to choose a legally effective name. Indeed, when designing your identity, be sure to choose other signs apart from a wordmark logo by which to stand out. For example, consider also having a tagline, character, symbol, mascot, sounds, music, etc. Note that color is almost impossible to own, so don't rely heavily on color as a way to stand out. Once you've made your choice, use your identifiers consistently and protect them through trademark registration. Now, the gold standard to look at for inspiration is Geico, an insurance company that uses a gecko as its mascot, making it instantly recognizable. If you use signs that consumers recognize, there's less risk that they would be confused into buying from a competitor, mistaking them for you. When people hear that their name is an important decision, they assume that means they should choose a cool-sounding name. But that's only part of it. What's more relevant is to know that the name is the most important intellectual property decision you make for your business. So it makes sense to be guided by the law when choosing it. Trademarks are the IP right relevant to names. Knowing what constitutes a good name matters hugely to your fortunes in business. Every business, even the humblest ones, such as a local plumber, needs to ensure they're using trademarks correctly and are not stepping on competitors' toes or handicapping themselves with a poor choice of name. There's widespread confusion around names. For example, in the marketing industry, it's believed that a good name is one that says on the tin what the business does and is all about. While that might be a suitable approach to choosing certain product or service names, it's completely wrong when you're naming your business. Say you set up a food business, that specializes in making fresh pizzas and decide that the perfect name for your business is Fresh Pizzas. This is not a name that you can legally own because the legal system permits everyone in the pizza or food category to use the words Fresh Pizzas to describe or sell their pizzas. Other food sellers are perfectly within their rights to use those words in any way they like, including naming their offerings Fresh Pizzas. Similarly, if you live in Hastings and are a plumber and call your business Hastings Plumbers, You can't stop other plumbers also referring to themselves as Hastings plumbers. Choosing such names means you won't have a unique identity by which consumers can recognize you, and that's bad. Having a unique name by which people can find you and only you is essential in business, because that's how you avoid being confused with your competitors. While you might believe Fresh Pizzas or Hastings Plumbers is yours because you've named your business Fresh Pizzas or Hastings Plumbers and perhaps registered it as a company name and bought the domain names Fresh Pizzas or Hastings Plumbers, that's not the case. Other businesses can also freely use these names, so choosing the wrong name sets you up for failure. Your name is the most basic moat around your business. It seriously disadvantages your business to choose a name that competitors can legitimately use. You effectively give yourself a colander instead of a container to capture your brand value or goodwill. That destroys your value and the amount of business coming your way. It lays you wide open to theft and copying. Now, J.K. Rowling just uses her own name for everything. She doesn't use a separate business name. Her brand is her own name. As you can see, she's registered it as a trademark. That means that while there may be other J.K. Rowlings in the world, the only one who can use this name in the areas of business that J.K. Rowling operates in is J.K. Rowling herself. So if you decide, like J.K. Rowling, to use your own name as your business name, you must first check that nobody else has already registered it for a similar area of business and find out whether the name is possible to register as a trademark. If it is, then register it. Domain or company registration are not enough to secure exclusive rights in names. Similarly, if you decide not to use your own name and to choose a different name for your own business's identity, be sure to first check that it's the right kind of name and that no other business is using a similar one in your industry. How you design your identity is extremely important due to the need to distinguish yourself from the oversupply of competitors. Buyers have plenty of choice as to who to buy from. To thrive, you should try to stand out so your ideal clients notice you and don't confuse you with the competition. Creating a unique identity that works well from a brand protection perspective and that you own through trademark registration is the way to prevent competitors from copying or mimicking you. When your brand name and other elements are noticeable and different to that of competitors, you'll be more memorable to buyers. You'll also reduce the risk of having business diverted away from you. A common reason people have less success is that they use a name that's difficult or virtually impossible to stop others mimicking, or they use too many names. That's why thinking through your naming hierarchy is so important when you're first choosing your name. By naming hierarchy, I mean your approach to naming your business and its products and services. A client of mine, Eric, had named his business Database Center of Excellence when I first met him. I advised him to choose a more distinctive name, so he went off and bought 1,000 names from a name generation company. He couldn't choose a name, so asked for my help and became a coaching client. We worked through the 5 steps I've outlined in this talk, and he decided against using any of the 1,000 names. Instead, Eric ended up choosing De Verg as his business's name, which is a variation of his own name, spelt more accessibly. As he says, my business has now expanded to include cybersecurity work. I'm so pleased I stopped using Database Center of Excellence as my company name. Thank you, Shireen, for helping me to choose my name and also to secure it as a trademark internationally in the USA, EU, Norway, and in the UK. Your identity is a key way buyers recognize and notice you. It involves making a host of correct IP decisions which have ramifications down the line. Think of your visual identity as the equivalent of a person's face. Changing it is like having plastic surgery. The transformation effectively makes you unrecognizable. An example of the damaging impact it can have on a business to change its identity is Tropicana, who lost a ton of sales after changing their packaging in the way shown on this slide. They became unrecognizable and immediately reversed the change within 5 weeks. Tropicana's redesign featured so many unnecessary changes, such as turning the logo 90 degrees, which made the name disappear. In my experience, designers tend to make radical changes to visuals, so it's important to harness their creativity and direct it towards tweaking existing designs by adding a new mascot perhaps, or suggesting novel ways to use existing brand assets. You want to avoid a totally new look. Once decided upon, your name and other identifiers should be regarded as fixtures unless there are compelling reasons to rebrand. Don't chop and change them. And if you do rebrand, be especially careful how you do it so you don't lose too much brand equity. Though your visual identity is important, it's the last aspect of business design to put in place. You'd be putting the cart before the horse to seek out a designer before you first thought through the 5 steps I outlined earlier. Visual identity is the final step of the process. A designer could add so much more value if you've done some deep thinking work before engaging them. Carly Garber is a client who didn't know who to turn to for help with her business design. Despite spending lots of time and money following the programs of various gurus and internet marketers to develop her business idea, she wasn't making progress. She couldn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together till she attended one of my Brand Tune programs. This is what she had to say about her experience. I found the truth that other programs, courses, and gurus were missing. As a result, I was able to fine-tune my idea in a way that expresses my personality, skills, and talents, using a unique approach that cannot be copied. Identifying my ideal client and correcting previous mistakes I'd been making with my idea was key to making progress on it. Carly found that a key piece of the puzzle that was missing was IP. That doesn't surprise me because its role in business design and branding is poorly understood in the business community. People create brands and businesses without considering IP and brand protection as an intrinsic part of the process. IP affects the very choices you make of names and other identifying signs, so it's essential to address it when creating a brand so you know what's ownable and can create a moat, a barrier to entry around the business. When I trained in marketing and brand management by attending courses such as the 2 Marketing Week mini MBAs by Mark Ritson or Marty Neumeier's Level C programs, I was surprised how little IP was included in the curricula. Clearly, marketers and designers are expected to learn on the job, even though there's considerable amounts of knowledge needed about IP to do branding work. Valeria Aristidou is a designer who told me that designers are giving wrong information to their clients. So she wanted to distinguish herself by learning how IP impacts her work. It's not surprising that people are misinforming their clients about IP, given that they pick up their knowledge of the subject from all the myths and misinformation that's out there about IP. After attending my program, she said it was a game changer for her creative career. As she put it, the program took my knowledge in brand creation and brand protection to new heights. Thanks to this program, I now confidently guide and advise my clients towards the right decisions. The program is exceptional, offering comprehensive information and valuable insights. Shireen Smith's teaching is clear and insightful, simplifying intellectual property concepts. She demonstrates a deep understanding of IP and branding, suggesting actionable steps and invaluable insights backed by factual findings. This program provides a strong foundation for anyone looking to protect and create their brand. I'm glad I invested in it. Now, separating brand protection from brand creation isn't the best approach to making business design decisions. It's the norm, though, because most people don't know how to bring both aspects of business design into focus together. The creative professions focus on brand creation, while the legal profession focuses on protecting brands. Neither address both brand creation and brand protection together in a holistic way. But as IP affects the very choices you make of names and other identifying signs, it's best to take account of both brand creation and brand protection together when designing a business and brand. My firm, Asrights, is the only IP law firm that combines brand creation with brand protection in a joined-up way when designing businesses. We're on a mission to foster greater business success. We do this through our brand-tuned offerings. Options to work with us to access this joined-up approach to business design range from self-study programs to a group accelerator that's launching in January and one-to-one coaching. These all cover the 5 steps outlined in this talk, enabling you to put in place solid foundations for your business or for your client's business. And the pricing starts from £550. There's founder offers available currently, as well as a bonus option of either a free visual identity or a free UK trademark registration for the accelerator and coaching offers. To find out more, send me a quick email to shireensmith@asrights.com using the subject line "Profit from Your IP Webinar" and let me know which of these offers you're most interested to find out about. Now, if you'd like the recording of this webinar and are already signed up to the Brand Tuned or Asrights newsletters, we'll send you an email with a link to the recording. If you aren't subscribed and would like to receive the recording, please register to receive the Asrights newsletter by visiting asrights.com/newsletter so we can email you via Kajabi. Once you've received the recording, by all means, feel free to unsubscribe. So that's it. Here are my social media profiles if you'd like to connect with me, or if you have any questions, I'll answer them now. I'm going to stop the share.
Thank you so much, Shireen. That was fascinating, slightly worrying, and very clear and insightful. We've got a few kind of notes in the comments, which but please, if you've got a question for Shireen, do put your hand up, or put the little yellow hand up if you can find that, and I'll come around to it. So right. So, well, Michaela says, I had a friend who had a bespoke kitchen business. He named it after himself but then found out later on that he wasn't able to sell it. That's an interesting one.
Well, that's odd. It depends on the name, but many designer businesses are actually named after the actual designers, all these sort of big brands like Louis Vuitton, Jean-Paul Gaultier, all these names. And also cooks like Nigella Lawson.
Yes, of course. Well, I was going to ask you, and I don't know if you said this and I missed it, but did J.K. Rowling trademark her own name?
Yes, yeah.
She did. That's right.
It ages ago, in I think a couple of years after her book was published, or
Right. That's really interesting, because I've always thought that the only benefit to having an unpronounceable name like mine is that there is literally nobody else that I've ever found on the internet or anywhere called Lucy McCarrher. And I've always thought that kind of kept me safe. But clearly I've suddenly realized, flash of insight, it doesn't at all, because anybody could use my name should they wish to.
Yes, but you're not using it as your business name.
No, I'm not. No, but I might one day. Who knows?
Yeah, if you create something where you need to name it, that's when you'd consider it.
Yeah,
although
right.
The spelling of your name would make me think that you should alter the brand name that you use, so it's not so difficult to
right.
because I never remember how to spell your name either.
No, and nobody ever knows how to pronounce it. It's sort of, anyway, that's a bit of a diversion maybe, but thank you for that. So Johnson said, asked if you could maybe address the question of how to use IP as leverage / collateral to gain investment, which I think is a very good question.
Well, it depends what sort of business it is, but essentially investors will be looking to see what IP you've got in the business, and if you've got things like patents, they're very keen. So it depends on the nature of the business, or if you've got algorithms that are trade secrets and are highly in demand. With trade secrets, you need to be very careful to protect whatever it is. If it's a recipe, for example, or algorithms, you have to really guard it very, very carefully in a business and not even give employees access to it.
That's yes, that's interesting. Johnson, was there anything else you wanted to kind of follow up on that or ask more specifically? Because do just shout out if you want to. But equally, if not, that's fine. Jason says, many thanks, Shireen. I may need to engage your services in the future. So, Jason, anything you want to specifically ask Shireen, or are you... Sorry, you're muted if you...
Yeah, you're muted.
I may have...
You've now gone off camera. Jason is a designer.
Can you unmute yourself?
I think you should be able to unmute him.
I don't think I can, actually. I've never worked out how to do that, if that's the case. Jason, if you go down to the, I don't know if you're, oh no, you're on a phone, so that's always slightly more difficult, isn't it? If you can find the little red microphone icon with a slash through it, if you click on it, it will unmute you. In the meantime, Bev says, I have a trademark from my old jewelry business. How would I go about licensing it or selling it, as it's on 9 years and needs renewal?
Well, when a trademark is more than 5 years old, it's potentially attackable for non-use. So you need to really make sure that you're using it as a trademark in a trademark sense, as one way of protecting it. And then it depends really how successful the business is as to whether you can license. So with licensing, you always have to have something that's successful that people want. in order to then be able to benefit from your IP.
Does that answer your question, Bev, or would you like to say any more? Again, you're muted if you want to speak.
Thank you.
Unmuted.
Easier to speak, isn't it? Yes, it's outdated in that sense, but what I always thought and why I renewed it was that I hoped that possibly I could then sell it on for use in some other sort of fashion accessory or fashion way to another company that could develop a brand using the trademark.
If you want to do that, you should make sure you're using it, because if somebody came to me and said, you know, somebody has a trademark that's 9 years old, and I could see that they're not using it, I would say you don't need to actually pay anything to buy it, because it's vulnerable to attack for 9 years. So you need to make sure you're using it before you can sell it, really.
Okay, thank you for that.
Helpful. Paula, you've had your hand up.
Hi, Shireen, amazing talk. I thought it was so clear and insightful, and the timing for me is perfect. So thank you. I really, really appreciate all of the information. I just wondered if you could share just a little bit more clarity. You spoke about the visual identity is the final part of the process.
Yeah.
And then you spoke about the creation, and then the lawyer as being like you would need both. Could you just give a little bit more detail about how that actually plays out when you say about it being both and it being both together, how those two sort of quite different ways of thinking can coalesce?
Sure, yeah. At the moment, what tends to happen is that people choose a name and then they go to a lawyer to perhaps check whether it's available, and then they just use it. So lawyers aren't really asked for their opinion about whether it's a strong name or a weak name, and whether it's suitable for the sort of business that's using it, because an international business needs a much stronger name, and choosing something a bit descriptive will make it very expensive to register. So that's what I mean. If you bring both perspectives together when the choice is being made, you get a much better decision than if one party chooses and then the other party just is asked to protect it.
So it's much more at the kind of the naming stage rather
well,
than
also when you're designing it, you know, so if you want to use, for example, a mascot, it would be a good idea to make sure that this is something that you can own, and that is available for the intentions of the business. You know, the same with signs and symbols. So there's an availability, but also would it actually be a strong element for the business to be able to use? Yes.
Thank you very
much. So
both
hats really should be brought into focus. These very big businesses like the Googles, they do actually intersect branding with legal, so they bring everyone together to get everyone's perspectives. But at the smaller end of the market, you know, smaller businesses, it's very siloed in approach. So one party creates, and then protection often doesn't even happen at the same time. You know, a business might use a name for years before they even consider asking a lawyer to protect it. So
yeah, guilty as charged. Jason says that he was a designer and he tried his hand at branding consultancy with some success, but he never provided the legal part. And he says, good luck, Shireen, in your rare, unique service. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It is unique and rare, and so important that we see both sides of this issue. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, I think one of the problems is we simply, as business owners, we just don't know what we don't know enough.
Yes.
So your your service is really fantastically valuable. And I would
But
just
also
say,
they're vast fields. So branding is a huge thing to learn about, and people assume lawyers know it, but they don't. I've had to spend about 4 years going to courses and learning. And the same works for, designers. They need to really invest the time to learn the IP aspect to be able to bring it all together. So I believe that that's the best way to create brands is to combine, have a joined up approach.
That sounds absolutely, I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds like, perfectly obvious, but, I'm certainly aware of designers who, do branding, but never discuss the legal side of things. So yes, and I just would say to everyone, if you look in the chat before you go, Shireen's brand tuned website URL is there, along with the Rights website, so you might want to scroll back up in the chat and just take a note of those as well, if you're thinking of working with Shireen, which I can tell you is a very valuable and enjoyable experience. Thoroughly recommended.
Thank you, Lucy.
Has anybody else got any questions before we finish today? Do put your hands up, or or put something in the chat if you'd like to, or contact Shireen later.
Yeah, if you have any questions, do send me an email. Good.
Well, Shireen, thank you so much. This has been a really brilliant session. I hope, and I'm sure, Michaela says great presentation, Shireen. Thank you. It really has been. And I think it's incredibly thought-provoking. Jason's got his thumb up there in the library. I suddenly understand why you didn't want to talk. And John as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we look forward to seeing all of you on another session, and to hearing further from Shireen in due course. So thank you again, Shireen, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Right. Bye.